Aloha and welcome to ACIM meeting where we're doing a deep dive into chapter 2, section 10, the real power of the mind. Yes. Okay. And this is from the new edition. It's the complete and annotated edition from 2021, which includes all of Helen's notes. So we're starting out with sentence one. Everyone experiences fear and nobody enjoys it. So this is just a fact. When you're perceiving the world, you're experiencing fear. Everyone experiences fear. This is a shared illusion across all egos. And to be experiencing a world where you seem to be a body is to be associated as an ego. So, in that regard, there's not a single person who doesn't experience fear. Okay. And no one likes it. And that really reveals the incompatibility of fear with our true nature. No one likes it. That is the contrast. That's showing you that this is not the truth. It's not the truth of who we are. That's why we get a feeling like we don't like it. So this sentence is really setting the tone that fear is not natural. It's not wanted, despite it being totally common. It's a common occurrence. And feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions or you want to add any insight here too. Whether you're here in person or you're on Zoom, or if you just want to leave a comment on Substack. I'm watching for your comments there. So, next sentence. Yet it would take very little right thinking to know why it occurs. Now look at that. Very little. It's just a little shift into miracle mindedness. That's what right thinking is. And that's enough to see that the fear arises from misidentification as an ego. For myself, I just notice when there's any sense, and here's how I'm defining fear too. This is anything from concern or irritation all the way to full-blown murderous rage. Okay? So even just a little bit of irritation, like, why are they saying it like that? That's fear. And when you identify with the fear, it prevents you from seeing the underlying pattern and what it is that's playing out that needs to be brought to forgiveness. So it's just a little, A Course in Miracles talks about a little willingness. And here it's saying it would take very little right thinking to know why fear occurs. Okay, it's not a mysterious thing. The reason it occurs is because misidentification as an ego. If we're identified with an ego, we experience fear. Now, like I said, that could arise from just simply concern, false hope, hoping that something will go your way in the world. Like even as simple as, I hope it doesn't rain on my picnic today. That's any kind of hope for a worldly thing, that's also fear, because hope also comes with doubt. It comes along with doubt, okay? So very little right thinking to know why it occurs. It's just a consequence of wrong-minded perception. So it's constantly all throughout the day. That's why A Course in Miracles talks about, we could be making miracles all day long, like in every moment, because just having the perception as a body induces fear. We experience it off and on all throughout the day. And miracle mindedness brings us back to truth, where we get relieved from fear. That's why miracles are natural for us. Just constantly being relieved from fear. This is not avoidance. It's not pushing it away. It's not trying to paint it as if it's something else. So, next sentence. Very few people appreciate the real power of the mind. This is sentence 3. The mind is immensely powerful, but it's rare for us to remain aware of this, because the ego is teaching us that fear is justified, and to fear our own power. Even you can say spiritually advanced mind. Let's say spiritually advanced mind. We all forget occasionally. This awareness is a practice. It's a constant practice. That's why we're given a daily practice, such as A Course in Miracles. So we're constantly aware of how the mind works in making things fearful. Nobody remains fully aware of it all the time. I love how it says nobody, as in nobody. Everyone who's manifesting a body in this dream is subject to fear. That's what this is saying. So, the spiritual ego will tell you that you've already overcome all fear. And that's what let fear slip in without your awareness. But see, as long as you're manifesting as a body, there's some purification to be done. This is the thing to stay aware of. Very few people appreciate the real power of the mind. And the power of the mind is truly creative. This is its ability in a dream. It's the ability to forgive. That's the only creative power we retain while dreaming, is this ability to forgive. And in that ability to forgive, we're able to make miracles. Basically, forgiveness induces miracles. We don't even have to do anything to make miracles, just serve our function as the light of the world, which is forgiving our illusions. Recognize fear when it arises. Notice that it's because we're identified as an ego and we need correction. It's really, really simple like this. So on to sentence 4. Sentence 4 of paragraph 1. This is inevitable in this world. And by this, it means very few people appreciate the real power of the mind, and nobody remains fully aware of it all the time. It's talking about the last sentence. So it's saying this is inevitable in this world, because the human being has many things he must do and cannot engage in constant thought watching. So here's another instance where, the words are saying something, but other parts in a Course in Miracles would show something else. Like it says, there are many things he must do. Okay, so you don't really do anything. Other parts in A Course in Miracles reflect that, dictate that. You don't really do anything, but you dream that you have things to do. And it's like you're caused to pay attention to those things that you think you need to do. Maybe like go to the bank, go to work, take care of your kids, eat, exercise, all the different things that you seem to be doing in the world. Your mind is focused on those things. You see that? So it's saying, because the human being has many things he must do and cannot engage in constant thought watching. So the engagement in this constant thought watching is elusive. That's why we have a Course in Miracles to constantly bring us back to what we're thinking. And, this goes back to sentence 3, how very few people we're not in appreciation of the real power of the mind. And no one remains fully aware of it all the time. That's because of the things we must do according to this sentence. And, why is it that we must do these things apparently? Look, it's because we're being orchestrated to apparently do these things so that we can have these forgiveness opportunities. That's why it's must do. This is these orchestrations. No one's just sitting there without things that they seem to have to do in the world. Even people sitting in a cave meditating, they seem to have to get up and go to the bathroom, right? It's like these body senses seem to arise where you have to do something. And so no one is enabled to engage in constant thought watching. So constant vigilance, it seems to be impractical in form, but that doesn't mean it's meant to produce guilt. See, that's the thing that A Course in Miracles always gets back to. You're not meant to be guilty because you're not constant thought watching. You're not meant to be guilty because you slip into fear. This is a reminder that we're all in a learning phase. All of us. One thing that it says in the Bible, that Jesus' words as quoted in the Bible, is everyone's born in sin. He doesn't mean that as a guilty thing. It's like you have to perceive yourself as separate. That's what having a body is all about, perceiving yourself as separate. So this is an invitation to gently come back to remembering you're still in a learning phase. When you perceive yourself as a dense body, that's what it's saying. So it's not to be hard on yourself and to recognize you can't engage in constant thought watching. It's about coming back to this over and over again. And the slipping into identification as an ego is what's giving you something tangible to forgive. It's being orchestrated for your good, actually. And whenever you look at it as a blessing, it just becomes so much easier. And you guys, again, feel free to raise your hand or let me know if you have any questions. I'm aware of you on Substack and on Zoom, as well as in person. So sentence 5. However, if he hopes to spare himself from fear, there are some things he must realize, and realize fully, at least some of the time. See, that's where this little bit of willingness comes in. When you engage in self-judgment, and I see this happen so much, when you engage in self-judgment for not being aware all of the time, you miss opportunities to be aware some of the time, because your mind is taken up with judging yourself for not being aware as you think you should be. See, fear is undone simply by realizing the power of your thought. And remember, in the last section, we were talking about the power of your thought has to do with its creative power. You give no power to, let's say, negative thoughts. Basically, they're irrelevant. Fearful thoughts are irrelevant, giving them no power. even temporarily, temporary, sincere recognition of the power of your thought, the power of your creative thought. That's the thought you think with God, given to you by the Holy Spirit. Innocence, abundance, perfect happiness, all powerful. It's enough to open the way for healing. So let that be enough in your own mind. Okay, on to paragraph 2. The mind is a very powerful agent, and it never loses its creative force. So all the time, whether you're sleeping, watching TV, eating, talking with someone, it's never losing its creative force. So it's always creating or miscreating. And remember, when it's miscreating, it's blank. So it's not making any real effects. You can say creating is making real effects because it's undoing. That's the effect. It's undoing the dream. But it's never inert. It's always either creating or miscreating. And remember, miscreating isn't really doing anything. It may seem like you're driving yourself deeper into illusion because you're getting more and more upset and seeming to self-sabotage more and more as you go. But really, it's all just the same meaningless journey, meaninglessness. So this sentence 1 of paragraph 2, the mind is a very powerful agent and it never loses its creative force. This is reflecting the metaphysical law of cause and effect. Thought is the cause. Okay, sentence 2, it's very short. It, meaning the mind, never sleeps. Even during bodily sleep, conscious states, thought continues. You may have noticed in your dreaming how your mind is constantly working things out. And I can speak from experience, as you practice A Course in Miracles, you'll find yourself forgiving in dreams where there seems to be bodily sleep. Sarah's nodding because she knows she's experienced it in that, you'll wake up from a nighttime sleep and go, whoa, the forgiveness continued, or the lack of forgiveness. That's another one. You just see the lack of forgiveness. I can recall one where I was amazed. And this was before I ever started even practicing A Course in Miracles. I just saw something, there was this fear that came up of my husband leaving me for another woman. There was this fear of my husband cheating on me, right? And me catching him with another woman. So consciously, I was like, I don't want to be afraid of that. Gosh, if he goes with another woman, that's got to be a good thing. It's just a sign that it's over between us, right? So then I have a nighttime dream, and in the nighttime dream, I walk in on him with another woman. And in the nighttime dream, I go, oh, I'm happy for you. Something like that. Oh, I'm happy for you. And I realize oh, well, we've had a great run, great time together. You guys go ahead and enjoy each other. And I just felt so relieved of that thought. Like that thought wasn't bothering me anymore because the forgiveness occurred. Like I got to experience it as if it already happened and it was totally okay. And this was before even beginning A Course in Miracles, because the thought in my mind and the willingness was sincere in me that I wanted to see through it. I didn't want to keep that kind of thing. And it's funny because now he apparently has a girlfriend, and I never had one kind of ill moment about it. I have just been so happy for him the whole time. People ask me, "Aren't you like feeling jealous or anything like that?" I'm like, "No, I'm happy for him." I'm not trying to uh, rain on anyone's parade. If they're having fun, that's great. I'm happy, right? So it never sleeps. Thought's going to continue during sleep, unconscious states. So this line, it never sleeps, is hinting at why spiritual discipline must be cultivated deliberately. This is a deliberate practice. You just don't let fearful thoughts proliferate in your mind. It's not about resisting them. It's about noticing that these fearful thoughts aren't leading to anything that you want, and you're willing to have them corrected. So, hooray. On to sentence 3 of paragraph 2 of part 10 of chapter 2. And in case you're following along, we're on page 91. Every instant, it, meaning the mind, is making or creating. So there's a difference here, making and creating. Making is basically making things up. Nothing wrong with it. It's just a matter of noticing. Something keeps on dripping here. I'm just going to move to the side a little bit. I'm not sure what it is, but apparently there might be a leak. What fun. So the mind is constantly making or creating. Making is making things up, and I shared with you a little bit earlier, creating is basically extending forgiveness for what you're making up. That's what it is. That is the creative power that we've retained in the dream. That's our ability to forgive our illusions, to forgive what we're making. So the mind is following our will. We're either listening to the ego or we're listening to the Holy Spirit. We're always making a choice between the two. So we're making or creating. And none of us are perfect in the way that we're always, always, always listening to the Holy Spirit. And, for me, I haven't been practicing this for a little while. So I have a habit of not judging myself when I'm listening to the ego. I have a habit of, hooray, it's an opportunity. Hooray, it's an opportunity to view this with the Holy Spirit's vision, knowing I'm always choosing from that place. I'm not really choosing anything else either. I'm not really choosing my actions, and I'm not really choosing my words. So I don't have to analyze any of that, and I don't have to analyze anyone else's either. It's really simple. And in a practical sense, let's see how this looks. When I'm having a conversation with someone, let's say I'm relating with someone, I can feel them. There's a certain resonance there. I don't have to analyze any words. The Holy Spirit shows me a certain resonance. Someone might ask me, hey, would you like to interact with me? Would you like to have this conversation? Would you like to go to this place? Anything like that. I don't have to analyze the words at all. I could feel if it's in resonant alignment. I can feel what the undertone is of everything because of practice. So, one thing I like to say, if it's not a fuck yeah, it's a fuck no. And it's not a matter of, again, analyzing the words. Like I can see how they want to play in the field. And does that resonate? It's really simple. And since God's will for me is perfect happiness, it's so easy to see. And what I see is I continue to get better and better at recognizing the tone, the underlying tone. And where the Holy Spirit would have me be is in perfect happiness. So every instant is making or creating, and always as you will. So you're either willing with the Holy Spirit or you're willing with the ego. And remember, the ego analyzes and the Holy Spirit accepts. So, for me, I get insight. I know, some of my friends tell me they call it intuition. It's the same kind of thing. You call it your intuition. That's the Holy Spirit speaking to you, and it just knows. And the way the Holy Spirit speaks to you, or intuition speaks to you, it's joy, because God's will is your perfect happiness. So when doubt comes in, that's the ego. It doubts. How dare you be happy? How dare you see that underlying tone? See, remember, the ego always wants to analyze it, and the Holy Spirit just accepts. Yay, thank you for joining. I love you. So the sentence again, every instant it, meaning your mind, is making illusions or creating forgiving illusions, and always as you will. You're always choosing to listen to one voice or the other. And this really underscores the teaching in A Course in Miracles that you are much too tolerant of mind wandering. Mind wandering is just going into self-doubt, self-judgment. These are all basically fear, which is, how this whole chapter or whole paragraph 2 started. The mind is a very powerful agent. It never loses its creative force, right? And it talks about everyone experiences fear and nobody enjoys it, right? Now, this is section 10 of chapter 2. Okay, if there aren't any questions here, we're going on. Moving to sentence 4 of paragraph 2. Many of your ordinary expressions reflect this. Okay? Even in casual speech, we're often unknowingly acknowledging the truth about thought. So when it's saying many of your ordinary expressions reflect this, we're talking about every instant your mind is making or creating, and always as you will. So you'll hear this much of the time. And let's go on to sentence 5, because that gives examples. For example, when you say, don't give it a thought, you are implying that if you do not think about something, it'll have no effect on you. Right? This is a reflection of a metaphysical truth. What we give thought to, we empower. So when you say something like, don't give it a thought, and it'll have, saying, okay, if you don't think about it, it won't have any effect on you. And Jesus says in sentence 6, this is true enough. So he's affirming this everyday logic. Withdraw attention and the illusion fades. You might have heard Abraham Hicks talking about something like this. Don't pay attention to it. Don't give it any kind of thought. And it won't have any effect on you. If you notice, trying to resist the thought's arising and the ego's talking. So not giving it a thought is really, we learned in the last section, or the last section of chapter 2, that we are not to try to resist thoughts, but make them completely meaningless. So it's like looking at it as it arising, go, oh, that's a meaningless thought. It actually has no effect. Every thought that's not of creation, it's not of the spirit, it comes from listening to the ego, it's just meaningless. It goes on. Paragraph 3, sentence 1. On the other hand, many other expressions are clear expressions of the prevailing lack of awareness of thought power. So denial of the power of thought is deeply embedded in the collective psyche. And people talk about this kind of stuff all the time. So when we go to sentence 2 of paragraph 3, for example, you say things like just an idle thought. And that means that the thought has no effect. And what A Course in Miracles directly says is there's no idle thoughts. There are no idle thoughts. So when we say, oh, it's just an idle thought, if we don't deny the meaning to that thought, in our perception, it seems to carry creative power. It really doesn't carry any creative power. Now, that's what the forgiveness says. It says it's not true. It makes it irrelevant, as we learned in the last section. Making those thoughts irrelevant. So not just permitting them, not just being permissive with them. Okay, on to sentence 3. You also speak of some actions as thoughtless, implying that if the person had thought, he would not have behaved as he did. So this implies that the thought precedes behavior, which is metaphysically accurate. So Jesus goes on to say, you also use phrases like thought provoking. And he says, which is bland enough, but the term a provoking thought means something quite different. And there's a footnote about this, footnote 116. In the case of thought provoking, something outside has provoked, as in has provoked the thought. In the bland sense of sparked the thought. In the case of a provoking thought, however, the thought is now the cause, not the effect. And it provokes in the sense of inciting retaliation by arousing anger. The issue then is whether the thought is a mere effect or whether it is a provoking cause. So this is kind of like wordplay. When you say something like thought provoking, that means something outside of the mind provoked a thought. But a provoking thought means something very different. This reveals how different valuations of thought exist depending on the phrasing. So it's like a subconscious, it's showing a subconscious ambivalence around the power of the thought. So nothing outside of the mind is actually thought provoking. The thoughts are what's provoking. So on to paragraph 4. While expressions like think big give some recognition to the power of thought, they still come nowhere near the truth. I'm sure you guys have heard that before. That's in a lot of self-help, right? Think big. These phrases are hinting at the power, but they're still lacking the understanding that the thought is causative. So sentence 2, you do not expect to grow when you say it because you really don't believe it. So here the issue is belief. Without the belief, the thought lacks any alignment or power. The thought, think big, right? It's as if you don't have the power. That's why you're saying think big. It's like you are that. All that occurs to you occurs from thinking. So your thinking is very big in that regard. Even if it's apparently thinking small, it's thinking big because it's producing everything that you perceive. Everything in the perception comes from thought. You do not really expect to grow when you say it because you really don't believe it. Sentence 3. And this is also a channeling, just to put some perspective here. This is also a channeling of Jesus talking to Helen and Bill. So look at it like that. Number 3, it is hard to recognize, this is sentence 3, it's hard to recognize that thought and belief combine into a power surge, which can literally move mountains. So it's beyond thinking big. It literally does move mountains. Like, let's say there's an earthquake or there's a volcano, for instance. That's an effect of the power of thought. So this is an echo of, if you have faith as much as of a grain of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. This sentence. Thought plus belief basically equals miraculous power. And there's a footnote here, footnote 117. It's from Matthew 17:20 of the Bible. For truly I say to you, if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. So the thing is, we're thinking too small, even with the thought that says think big. So this is Jesus talking to Bill and Helen, which, we can use this. So sentence 4 of paragraph 4. It appears at first glance that to believe such a power about yourself is merely arrogant. And in the reflection, this is what I get to in the reflection, not so much for me anymore because my reflection has changed as my mind has accepted what's actually true. People will reflect back to you that you're just being arrogant, thinking that your mind is this powerful, thinking that everything comes from your own mind, thinking that everyone's doing everything for you and everything is happening for you. This is something I saw as a child and quickly covered up. I recognized the fear of other people basically disowning me because I'm thinking that everything's being done for me, which is actually the truth. I come to find out. Everything is being done for you, through you, by you, actually. The ego frames this kind of self-recognition as pride. This is to block your access to this power, saying it's arrogant. It's actually arrogant to believe you don't have this power. This is your all-powerful mind Jesus is speaking to here. So, sentence 5 of paragraph 4. But that is not the real reason why you don't believe it. So, ego defense mechanism is pride, right? The ego defense mechanism is pride. It's like it's covering things up. This arrogance, ego arrogance, it's really a pride in not having the power. Sentence 6, people prefer to believe that their thoughts cannot exert real control because they are literally, this is the real crux of it, afraid of them, afraid of their own thoughts. And we're going to get into this more about why are we afraid of our own thoughts? That we're believing that these thoughts, that's why we're allowing ourselves to go into fantasy, even dark fantasies, because of being afraid of our own thoughts. And if you look at, my last wisdom dialogues and also an article that I'm working on right now, I happen to see this really dark thought come up in me. And yeah, I was afraid of it. I did not want to see it. And because I was afraid of it, it was allowed to apparently have creative power, although, it's not real creative power. It's just making illusions. For many years, I saw it and I resisted it. It was a malicious thought. And you'll see it if you follow me on Facebook and you go to my wall on Facebook, it's coming up in a few days. I'll be posting about it. And you can see how this plays out. The ego frames this self-recognition as pride. This is it's like a cover story. So we're afraid of our own thoughts. And really, these are the thoughts that we believe with the ego. And the reason we're afraid of them is because we're believing that they actually have real effects. They make us feel guilty, and the guilt demands punishment. And all we really need to do is see that these thoughts are irrelevant and have no creative power, and then we don't have to buy into the guilt. So sentence 5, or paragraph 5, sentence 1. Therapists try to help people who are afraid of their own death wishes by depreciating the power of the wish. See, the thing is, the wish appears to have creative power in a dream when we don't deny it creative power, when we don't deny that it's relevant. Let's say it does have apparent creative power when we're not denying its relevance. See, we're not denying its meaning. So we automatically give it meaning. So people are afraid of their own death wishes, and they're saying by depreciating the power of the wish. That's different than saying the wish itself is irrelevant. Our mind is very powerful to make illusions. And that's the reason why we even perceive death, because there is this death wish and we're afraid of it. So they, meaning the therapist, even attempts to free the patient, free in quotes, free the patient by persuading him that he can think whatever he wants without any real effect at all. So there's a nuance here, right? In the last paragraph, it was talking about how any of these death wishes, they don't have any real effects. They only have effects in dreams, but that's the thing. They have effects in dreams if you're not seeing them and noticing that they're actually irrelevant. That's different from denial and projecting, denying and projecting them. Denying them is different from denying any meaning to them. Denying them comes from being afraid of them, afraid of the death wish. Denying any meaning to them is different. So it's a matter of looking on them. Okay. Sentence 3. There is a real dilemma here, which only the truly right-minded can escape. So that's what we're working on here. Recognizing what the truly right-minded is. That's the thing about this Course in Miracles. There's these little nuances going on here. It's very tricky. The ego is very tricky. So we're learning how to see this truly without trying to reject. And that's the automatic knee-jerk reaction, is to reject these death wishes rather than look on them and recognize that they're irrelevant. It's not like saying, oh, you can think whatever you want, it'll have no effects. No, it's noticing that those thoughts have no real effect because they have no creative power. But we give them power to make illusions if we're resisting them. There's a difference here. So, sentence 4. Death wishes do not kill in the physical sense, but they do kill spiritually. And that's because there is no physical death. So footnote 118. Later, the Course will teach that our physical death is the result of unconscious death wishes stemming from our guilt. When this sentence says that death wishes kill spiritually, this means that they kill our awareness of spirit. And that's the effect we're perceiving. So traditional therapy is only trying to minimize the impact of harmful thoughts. But that's denying the true power of the mind. We don't want to minimize the impact of harmful thoughts. They do have impact in our imagination, which seems very real to us because we set the body out in time. So we don't minimize the impact of harmful thoughts. We actually look on them and we deny any meaning to them. That is very different. We're not saying, oh, we can just think whatever we want. We can have these murderous thoughts and they won't have any kind of effects in their dream. No, we're actually perceiving death and war and all these kinds of stuff because we're thinking that we could just think these judgmental thoughts. We're not really thinking at all. We're actually listening to the ego, but we're projecting illusions. And when we notice we're listening to the ego and we look at it and go, that thought actually has no meaning. That's different. Because then we're not listening to the ego. We stop listening to the ego and we start listening to the Holy Spirit. So when the therapist, and this is from sentence 2 of paragraph 5, when the therapist attempts to free the patient by persuading him that he can think whatever he wants without any effect at all, this approach is to try to ease the guilt of the patient, which comes from a sweet place, it's caring. But it's at the cost of denying true cause and effect. So when we see the true cause and effect, what's going on, what's causing wars, what's causing death, what's causing aging, is denying this cause and effect. So it's not giving us the presence of mind to say, these miscreative thoughts are actually irrelevant. They have no meaning in reality. So this stops you from actually listening to them and permitting them to proliferate in your mind, thus projecting death and wars and everything you don't want, basically. Yay, thank you for joining. I love you. Yeah. It's interesting because, we were in the last paragraph, or in the last section 9 of chapter 2, It was all about how this, this fearful thinking really has no relevance. It has no relevance. It had, denying any relevance to this stuff. It makes no sense, as if it's just thinking that makes no sense. And then we come into this chapter and it's showing a different kind of nuance where we're just permitting these thoughts to be projecting, acting like they're going to have no effect. That's very different than denying them meaning. Okay? And the ego works with this nuance to confuse us. So sentence 5 is saying all destructive thinking is dangerous. So only aligning our mind with truth can escape this trap of denying either guilt or thought power. Right? It's a simple denying power, denying thought power is saying that your mind is not powerful. But actually using the power of your mind to say, this thought doesn't mean anything. This actually thought has no meaning. You're recognizing that if you give it power, like if you just permit it, if you just keep listening to the ego, you're giving it power. It's going to have apparent effects. Are they real effects? No. But do they seem real to you? Yes, they do. So it's a matter of recognizing this thought is not true. And that releases you from the trap. So a destructive thought talks about in sentence 4, death wishes do not kill in the physical sense, but they do kill spiritually. That's speaking to how all destructive thoughts block love and spiritual connection. That's why it says all destructive thinking is dangerous. So all thought that denies love has effect on the mind, even if it's not seen. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, someone does. I am not clear, Christine, thank you. I am not clear about what to say to someone that it's saying that they want to kill themselves. Well, here's the thing. That is not them saying they want to kill themselves. That's the ego that they're listening to. So it's not a matter of them, going, okay, the thought I want to kill myself, it can just keep on proliferating. It's a matter of looking on that and saying, that's the ego. That's not my real thought. That thought has no meaning in reality. See, it's not telling them, oh, it's okay to pursue that thought and have fantasies about it. Because when they're having fantasies about it and they're just they keep listening to the ego, they're actually projecting it. See, their mind is very powerful to make apparent effects. It's important to look on that and say, this thought does not mean anything. That's the ego saying that. She got it. I know Christine gets it really fast. Feel free to raise your hand, you guys. This stuff could be confusing. It's really good to have clarifications, right? Because some of you are therapists that are listening and you have clients saying this thing. So what Jesus is saying here is that what most therapists do is like, okay, just ignore that thought because it's not going to do anything. Doesn't really mean anything in that sense. You could just ignore it. It's not about ignoring it. It's about recognizing it's the ego. You guys, when I first had this kind of insight, I'm just going to bring this back. Some of you guys have heard it before, but it's good to bring it back. So I was having a really difficult time in Vipassana meditation. I was crying all day and I wasn't aware why I was crying until I heard the thought in my mind saying, Mommy, how could you do that to me? And it had to do with my mom's apparent neglect of me as a child, right? So this thought was buried, it was hidden, but it was causing pain. It was causing me pain, okay? instead of wallowing in that moment, I recognized that's the ego. That little kid voice that's saying, Mommy, how could you do that to me? That's the ego. That's what was making effects in my world. That's what was making my relationship with my mom difficult, and my relationship with my daughter, and my relationships all across the board. It was preventing my seeing. But once I recognized that was the ego, and I could say, that thought doesn't actually mean anything, all of a sudden I felt such freedom. And the result of it was my relationships healed so much. My relationship with my mom totally healed. Totally healed. Everything changed. All of a sudden, there was just all this compassion for my mom, which she mirrored back to me and still mirrors back to me to this day. And that was about 11 years ago in the illusion of time. Okay, so this is the little nuance that we're talking about here. So say you went to a therapist, and you go to a therapist about this. Hey, I'm having this thought. It seems like it's my inner child saying, Mommy, how could you do this to me? What the therapist is going to do is look at that with you in a way that's making the thought real. Saying, oh, it's okay to think that. Your mom didn't. She did neglect you. Look at what she did. Shit. She let that guy do all that shit to you. She never came around and helped you out. This is what Jesus is talking about here. This is the little nuance right here. So then this would give that thought power to keep on making effects in your dream. But when you see the thought, in my case, Mommy, how could you do that to me? As being a meaningless thought, that's where you take the power away from it. And that's where that's where it's showing the cause and effect. By denying any real meaning to that thought, it took away its apparent power in my dream. See? And the only reason why this is confusing is because we're identified as egos. Otherwise, it's really, really plain. But the reason why A Course in Miracles has so many words is because we have to see past all of the words we set up as barriers to knowing this. This is how it's helpful to us. Thank you, Christine, for your question. Anyone else, please raise your hand. If anything I seem to say sounds confusing or anything, please let me know. I'm really happy to help all of us. Right here, we're joining with the Holy Spirit. We're joining with Jesus to see this clearly. So any questions you have, please feel free. So any thought that says all destructive thinking is dangerous. So that thought, Mommy, how could you do that to me? It was so dangerous. It was making these terrible relationships with my mom and my daughter. But if I went to a traditional therapist, what would they do? They wouldn't tell me that's the ego, that's a meaningless thought. It's like, oh, that's your inner child. This is going to take a long time to heal and a lot of money that you pay to me. And we're going to make that thought real and real again and again and again until you get over it. That's what Jesus is talking about. Making illusions true is never going to help you heal it. Making illusions true is what makes you keep them. You can't keep your illusion and also be healed from it. So let's go on. Sentence 6 of paragraph 5. And again, we're on page 92. Given a death wish, a person has no choice except to act upon his thought or behave contrary to it. So given a death wish, and this is the example I'm telling you, Christine gave one example. It's exactly the same thing. Mommy, how could you do this to me? And I want to kill myself. It's really the same thing. It's basically the same thing. I'm trying to kill myself. And I could feel that, after days of meditating, after days of being in silence, of sitting in a cross-legged position and going through the pain like that. I say that it's similar to block therapy, but block therapy is way more enjoyable. You can do it the easy way or you can do it the hard way. I was doing it the hard way in that, at that time, but it gave me the presence of mind to see this is the same thing as I want to kill myself. You might as well be saying that. So given a death wish, a person has no choice except to act upon his thought or behave contrary to it. So the ego offers these two options: act it out or suppress it. Both are fearful. Neither one of these are doing what the Holy Spirit would have you do. Act it out or suppress it. So let's say the thought, I want to kill myself. Acting it out is obviously like hanging yourself or something like that. Suppressing it is like, I'm bad for thinking this thought. I shouldn't be thinking this thought. I'm going to do my best not to kill myself. Right? And the thing with, let's say the thought about mommy, how could you do that to me? It's like either I'm going to want to try to avoid that thought so I'm not hurting, because that was a very painful thought I saw. I was crying all day, apparently, from the morning until the middle of the night. At first, I didn't even see the thought. It was not coming up. That's the suppression of it. And it's a very painful thought. Or you can act it out. You can lash out at your mom. You could actually tell your mom in the physical sense, you've been a shitty mom. Do you know what you fucking did? Right? Like that. Both are fearful, is what Jesus is saying. Given a death wish, a person has no choice except to act upon his thought or behave contrary to it. So it's like pretending, suppressing it. All right, I'm checking on my sweet peeps over here on Substack. I love you. Thank you for joining, beauties. Be sure to chat, just chat me up. What page are you on, Cora asked. Thank you for asking, Cora. We are on page 92 still, and that's paragraph 5. That, by the way, this is the version from 2021, complete and annotated edition. And we were just reading sentence 6 of paragraph 5. And now we're on to sentence 7. He can thus choose only between homicide and fear. See previous notes on will conflicts. So he can choose only between homicide and fear. So without true healing, all choices appear to involve suffering. But really, you're only making a choice between two alternatives, and one is suffering and one is healing. Those are the two alternatives. So we have a footnote here. Footnote 119. A secondary meaning of death wish is a desire for the death of another person toward whom one harbors unconscious hostility. Haven't we all done that? Some people, sometimes I tell people that, they're like, not me. I'm like, really? You haven't looked then? A lot of the times people go, oh yeah. Like, haven't you ever thought that you would be better off if some person wasn't here? If there was a particular person just passed away, just like in a passing thought, just like have that arise. Like, I would be better off if this person wasn't here. I mean, I've seen a lot of that lately. A lot of people think they would be better off if Donald Trump wasn't here, for instance. You can just look on any social media and see this phrase 8647. Some of you might not know what the meaning is behind that, but yeah, it's like, this is a common thing, right? Where it's harboring this unconscious hostility. desire for the death of another person. This is actually very common. If you looked into your mind, you'd probably see it. But there's real fear of looking at this. You know, because you also unconsciously know the power of this to make illusions that you're dying and actually kill you, because everyone in the dream is actually you. So fun and funny. All right, so we're moving on. We're still on this footnote, 119. A secondary meaning of death wish is a desire for the death of another person toward whom one harbors unconscious hostility. And I've shared with you guys before, one of my, you could say, challenges, and all challenges come from identifying as an ego, was this apparent desire to kill one of my sons. Or, you know, that's hard for every mom to talk about. Although you read about things in the news and you're like, how can any mom do that? Kill their 5 children, for instance. That's because they didn't see that this thought was a thought that was against them. They didn't see how to apply forgiveness to this thought about this death wish toward another person. We're still on footnote 119. The phrase, quote, previous notes on will conflicts, refers to the previous section. So where it says, see previous notes on will conflicts from sentence 7, that's what this is referring to. It refers to the previous section, particularly paragraphs 6 through 11. This reference shows that fear of one's destructive wishes, which is what is being discussed above, fear of destructive wishes is the same fear discussed in the previous section. So now we're getting into that. We touched on it in the previous section. This is fear of our own death wishes. Okay, and that's 5. So without true healing, all choices appear to only involve suffering. But truly, the choice is between healing and suffering. Another way A Course in Miracles puts it is it's between truth and illusion. Illusion is suffering, truth is healing. Another way to put it is between love and fear. There's a lot of different ways to put it. It's the same thing. So, paragraph 6. The other possibility is that he depreciates the power of his thought. So the common alternative to acting out is to pretend the thought is benign. Let's say that. The thought is definitely meaningless. I almost said meaningless because, you know, these words, you kind of have to look behind the words to see what's going on here. The common alternative to acting out is to pretend the thought is benign. It's like, okay, I have this death wish, but it doesn't really do anything. It does do something until you apply the meaninglessness to it. It does do something in your dream. It doesn't do anything in reality. Remember, it doesn't do anything in reality. So it's not good or bad. It's just making illusions that you don't want. You could see that. And that's why you have this ability to recognize the contrast. What feels good and what doesn't feel good. Okay, I'm just checking on you guys. Yay. Cora says, I sure see it in me. I know we've had this conversation before, haven't we, Cora? Where you know, it's like you see it, and we've had this discussion where you see it and it's like, fuck, that is, whew, that's scary. That's big. I want to kill people, apparently. And it's like, when I see something, it's like that, it's like, hooray. It's not a scary thing. I don't feel like I need to go see a therapist now. I know what they're going to tell me, right? It's like, wow, oh, I'm so glad I see that, because now I can bring it to the truth. I can see this thought as actually a thought that has no meaning in reality. It's not that it's benign if I just, oh yeah, well, they do deserve to die, let's say. Oh, I would be better off if they were dead, right? Maybe I shouldn't have had that kid. Yay. I'm glad it's landing for you, Caitlin. Thank you. I'm so glad you're here. And you know, when it lands for you, it's like you accept this for millions of people who can't quite grasp what's going on here. And you shine a light into everyone's mind. So I thank you for being here and for listening and for your willingness to see. It's really awesome. Cora says she's taking it much less seriously now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. It's comical because it doesn't mean anything. And that's perfectly fine. It's comical, the thought, the death wish. It's like you can smile at it because it actually has no meaning in reality. When you think it has some kind of meaning, you're taking it seriously, you're trying to push it away, or you're acting it out, which may manifest as anger, which may manifest as concern. It's all coming down to fear. Yay. So paragraph 6, sentence 1, the other possibility is that he depreciates the power of his thoughts. So we want to recognize that these thoughts are very powerful, and we also want to recognize the power of our mind to bring it to the truth and see that it's actually a meaningless thought, not that it's a powerless thought. Yes, it's powerless in reality, but we're dreaming. So we're giving it power. That's why we're dreaming about death. That's why we're dreaming about aging and sickness and addiction, right? And dreaming like we could do things that are not nourishing and that hurt us and things like that. So Jesus says, this is the usual psychoanalytic approach. And there's a footnote here. And then it says, i.e. Freudian, so a Freudian approach. So modern psychology is often reducing thought to nothing more than mental noise. So when you're aware that this is not just some idle chatter, A Course in Miracles says there are no idle thoughts. This is not just mere noise that doesn't have any kind of effects in your dream. There's lots of effects in the dream. That's what all this dreaming is. It's all taking this mental noise and saying it has no power to make any effects in this dream. That's the usual psychoanalytic approach. So sentence 3. This does allay guilt, right? So it's an attempt to allay guilt. It's saying your thoughts are benign, but at the cost of rendering thinking impotent. If thoughts have no effect, then healing can't occur through thought either. Right? And that's exactly how healing occurs. Healing occurs by using a thought that's true, bringing an untrue thought to truth. That's another thought. That's the whole Holy Spirit's power in your mind is it being a thought system. This is a matter of thinking with right-mindedness. Holy Spirit has a thought system, and it's right alongside the ego's thought system. So when you just let these thoughts of the ego proliferate, permit them, fantasize with them. I've had instances where my husband and I have had life insurance. And I've seen my mind go to, like when we've had a fight or something, go to, wouldn't it be awesome if he died and I got the life insurance? You see that? But see, what happens is I say something like this and I can laugh about it because I know that it's a meaningless thought, right? But it's not meaningless in the sense that it's not making any effects if I sit there and fantasize about it, right? So when I would see that and I was witnessing myself fantasizing about it, going, oh, what is going on here? And this goes on a lot, but people don't talk about this. Are you kidding me? They don't want, they think that the other people looking at them are separate from them. So they won't talk about this about themselves. See, I happen to know that you guys looking at me, And whatever, seems to come up in your mind, I cast that. And I want to bring up these kinds of things so you can see that you're not alone. You're not, you're not like on this insane journey by yourself. Everyone is thinking in this way that because as we're identified as an ego, as we recognize what's going on, we don't entertain thoughts like this anymore because we see that they have effects in the dream and it's really killing ourselves to fantasize about death. So recognizing what's going on. It's like if thoughts have no effects, then healing cannot occur through the thought either. Now, this isn't actually coming from the book. This is a note that I made to the sentence 3. This does allay guilt, meaning what modern psychology says, reducing thought to nothing more than mental noise does allay guilt, but at the cost of rendering thinking impotent. So that's basically saying thoughts have no effect. Therefore, healing can't occur through thought either. How would it occur if it didn't occur through thought? This is a whole thinking journey, right? Even your emotions are projections of thought. So we're on sentence 3 there. So on to sentence 4. If you believe that what you think is ineffectual, you may cease to be overly afraid of it, but you are hardly likely to respect it either. So what Jesus is saying here, you're not likely to respect the power that you've given to thoughts to make effects in your dream. Basically killing in a dream. Basically aging, sickness, war, all that stuff. So this false neutrality keeps the mind untrained. What we want to do is train the mind. This is how we keep the mind untrained and basically unmiraculous. And what we're working on here is miracle mindedness. So we want to train the mind. So we want to respect the power of the mind to make these illusions. Yay. So sentence 5. The world is full of endless examples of how people have depreciated themselves because they are afraid of their own thoughts. So this insanity can flip between total denial of thought to obsessive fixation on thought. The world is full of endless examples. So let's go on to sentence 6, where it's going to talk about these forms of insanity. In some forms of insanity, thoughts are glorified, but this is only because the underlying depreciation was too effective for tolerance. And we have a footnote about this, 121. In these forms of insanity, in other words, a person will ascribe a grand significance to his thoughts, but only as a cover to compensate for an underlying depreciation of thought. A depreciation so effective that he found it intolerable. Okay, let's look into this a little bit. Footnote 121. So self-judgment arises from not understanding the power and purpose of thought. It's really a full sentence. The world is full of endless examples of how people have depreciated themselves because they are afraid of their own thoughts. So there's a collective pattern of self-minimizing. The ego is teaching us to fear our own mind, especially its power to create and miscreate. So to avoid facing this power and the accountability that goes along with it, right? The responsibility, takes responsibility to go along with this, is people are devaluing themselves. And, here's really common examples. False humility. I'm not good enough. I'm not enough. That's one of them. Self-sabotage. Depending on external authority. That's really common in the world. And, the world would, the systems in the world would encourage that. Listen to what the news tells you, for instance. Listen to what we're telling you to do. Take this pill, eat this, take this injection, right? This is dependence on external authority. The avoidance of inner reflection, looking to the outer for authority, identifying as a body or roles in the world to distract from your own mind's power. Or resentment too. That's mine. That's been coming up lately, where I'm seeing this resentment I've been having of my husband. That's something I can see really clearly now. It's been gone for a good almost a year. But it's like, this is an example of depreciating the power of my own mind, feeling trapped and making it because of him, because of something if he would only do something different, I wouldn't feel trapped like this. So these are examples of how we do it. And because we're afraid of our own thoughts. Once it came back to myself, and I saw it coming gradually, where I would go, wait a minute, I'm the one making him into a problem. So to fear our own thoughts is to fear the actual cause of what we're making. And A Course in Miracles teaches, as a man thinks, so does he perceive. Or woman, it doesn't matter, it's all the same. However we think, we perceive. That's the real cause. The world, as we perceive it, is an effect of our thoughts. Okay? To fear our own mind, which is what's going on when we make it about something in the world, is to fear the root cause of all of our experience. So depreciating ourselves, depreciating our own mind, is a way of saying, I'm not powerful enough to be responsible for what I see and feel. Like, I'm the one that projects all my feelings. That's what gets me so free, because I'm aware I project all my feelings. So me feeling this way is the cause of everything I'm perceiving, because I'm projecting it. It's not like they or them or this thing or this situation is making me feel it this way. No, it's actually, I'm projecting that feeling onto myself, which is actually making the situation. It's a whole reversal. The ego reverses the whole thing, makes it look like what's in the outer world is affecting our mind rather than the other way around. Our mind and the feelings we're projecting on ourselves is actually what's projecting the outer world, right? So it's believing that something real can be threatened that's making illusions of threat in the world. And then we perceive threats in the world and believe that is what's making us upset. So it keeps on going around, looping around like that. It's like, reinforcing guilt and keeping us trapped in an illusion. So this sentence again, in some forms of insanity, thoughts are glorified, but this is only because the underlying depreciation was too effective for tolerance. The underlying depreciation was too effective for tolerance. So the thoughts become glorified because there's a self-depreciation. And we're aware subconsciously that that's very effective, and we don't want to tolerate it. So instead, we glorify thoughts. So it's like this fascination. When self-depreciation becomes intolerable, the ego swings to the opposite, glorifying thoughts. So this is like manic ideation, grandiose belief system, compulsions or control to be special, a spiritualized ego even. So this isn't true empowerment. It's still rooted in fear. It's basically the ego trying to compensate for an unbearable sense of worthlessness. So what ACIM is teaching is that this is the ego's strategy of inflating the dream rather than waking up. When you identify with the ego, you're inflating the dream. You're making it real. So Jesus is reminding us here that neither self-depreciation nor ego glorification honors the truth. That was sentence 6, a rich sentence. In some forms of insanity, thoughts are glorified, but this is only because the underlying depreciation was too effective for tolerance. Okay, you guys don't have any questions about that? Let's move on. Paragraph 7. And we're still in section 10 of chapter 2. The truth is that there are no idle thoughts. Oh, we've gone over that, haven't we? Basically, every thought has an effect, even in the dream. None of them are neutral. A Course in Miracles says, none of your thoughts are neutral. So it's a matter of looking at, they have no real effects, so therefore you can deny meaning to them. That's how you bring them to the truth. You deny actual meaning. They're meaning because God didn't create that. Therefore, it's not true. But it does have power to make illusions in the dream because your mind is all powerful. You can deny that power to it by making it meaningless only. That's forgiveness. Sentence 2. All thinking produces form at some level. So thought is creating experience and perception, whether or not we even see the connection. And most people aren't seeing the connection. This is helping us to see the connection so we can stay awake and not fall asleep to the thoughts that we're automatically listening to when we're getting sleepy in the dream. Sentence 3. The reason why people are afraid of ESP and so often react against it is because they know that thoughts can hurt them. So ESP, I believe that refers to mind reading. Hang on just a second. Let's just look this up. ESP. So ESP, basically extrasensory perception. So people get afraid of extrasensory perception. Basically seeing things beyond the physical. Okay. It's not being endorsed as a psychic trick or a superpower. It's serving as a symbol for the natural unblocked communication between minds. What the Course in Miracles sometimes calls true empathy or direct mind joining. All minds are joined and our communication is constant. But in the ego's dream of separation, it's different. The truth is terrifying to the ego. To the ego, this ESP implies you can hide your thoughts. Someone could see through you, or you can't hide your thoughts. Right? So that's why the ego's afraid of it, because the ego wants to believe that your thoughts are separate, like your mind is separate, like you can hide them, like you can think them in secret. And A Course in Miracles says that there's no private thoughts. So the ego's afraid someone could see right through you and see what's going on in your inner world. It doesn't want to be vulnerable and not private. This brings up fear for the ego. So the sentence says, the reason why people are afraid of ESP and so often react against it is because they know that thoughts can hurt them. Remember, in the last chapter, the last section of chapter 2, we were going over section 9. It was saying, these thoughts can't hurt you in reality. That's why you can deny meaning to them. make them irrelevant in reality. Irrelevant. That means they're not true. That means you wouldn't keep listening to them. What the ego wants to do is keep listening to them, but in private, pretending like our minds aren't one, like our minds are separate. Like you can sit there and think that person is such a dumb bitch or something like that, right? I remember that. I recall I was on an ayahuasca journey. My own one and only ayahuasca journey was a three day journey, and right next to me this woman, I forgot how she was behaving. I mean, that was not really relevant. But I noticed a thought in myself. What a dumb bitch was the thought. And I was like, holy shit, that thought doesn't mean anything. Right. And immediately there's like this sense of compassion and sweetness coming for this person, right? But to the ego, being afraid of it, being afraid that we might be found out, is like trying to think this thing in secret. It's trying to either use it and go and go, gosh, why do I have to sit with someone that is like disturbing my practice here, and this could be a beautiful ayahuasca experience, except this stupid bitch is right beside me, right? So that's one way to exercise the fear of it. The other way is to repress it. Oh, no, 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 I don't want to think that. See, and the cure for this, only forgiveness can be said to cure, is like, oh, that's a meaningless thought. And then you can just be glad, because now you're having a nice interaction. What I found was I was actually having a really sweet interaction with this person because of recognizing that that thought itself is actually a meaningless thought. It's not a benign thought. That's different. It has all kinds of power to make illusions. If I want to sit there and make it a fearful thought, either resist it or make it real, then what I'm going to experience is perceived separation with this person and perceived separation from my own wholeness. I'll be making excuses for why I feel the way I feel, maybe even for why I'm vomiting. That's something that's common in ayahuasca ceremonies, a bunch of vomiting, which apparently I didn't have that going on. So that was sentence 3. Was it 3? Yes, the ESP one. So sentence 4. Their own thoughts have made them vulnerable. And when it says their own thoughts, what it's saying is the thoughts that you think with the ego, which is not really thinking, it's listening. This is really powerful for me to keep in mind, and maybe helpful for you too, to recognize that whenever A Course in Miracles is saying your own thoughts, it's talking about the thoughts you listen to of the ego. Because it says in other parts too, you don't really have your own thoughts in a dream. You're listening to one or two voices. That's the choice you're making, to listen to one or two voices. So when you take this sentence like that, their own thoughts, meaning the thoughts you listen to of the ego, have made you vulnerable. Are you really vulnerable? No. But do you believe you're vulnerable? Yes. Does it have effects that seem very real to you in a dream? Yes, it does. Absolutely. So it's like we feel exposed, not because of others, but because of what we think and project. That's what makes us feel exposed. So when I recognize that thought, what a dumb bitch, next to me, I noticed, oh man, that if I were to make that thought real, I would want to hide that thought, right? Either that, or some people just come out in the ayahuasca ceremony when it's time to share and actually talk about what a dumb bitch the person is. That's fun too. Either way it comes out. And when that comes out in my perception, like I'm sitting around and, sometimes find myself sitting around in some spiritual circle, and people will just be projecting all kinds of delusional thoughts. What I do is I just take each one of those delusional thoughts and I smile at it and recognize that is a meaningless thought. So that helps the person be relieved, once they're ready, to be relieved of the power that they're actually giving to that thought, and be able to see it as a meaningless thought, not a real thought, not something they would reject or something they would repress, but something they would bring up and recognize the pain that it's causing and notice it's a meaningless thought. That's why we have this ability to see this contrast, what feels good and what feels shitty. right? Some people will tell me, but it feels good to have this murderous thought. Okay, look deeper. It's good to what? Good to an ego that's dependent. Notice it's dependent on that kind of outcome, a murderous outcome. So it seems like it feels good, but it's really good to only to an ego. It takes some deep introspection to see this stuff. So their thoughts have made them vulnerable, their own thoughts, which are really listening to the ego. And there's a footnote here, footnote 122. Because our own thoughts have made us vulnerable. And, here in the footnote, own, because, I'm talking about this, how it's whenever it says in A Course in Miracles, keep this in mind. This will be helpful for you, I believe. Because our own thoughts, which is really thoughts that you're listening to that are the ego's thoughts, these are not your own thoughts. The Holy Spirit's thoughts actually represent your own thoughts. Because our own thoughts have made us vulnerable, we now believe in the hurtful power of thoughts. And fear being hurt, and we actually fear being hurt by the thoughts of others. So you see, it's like if someone else thinks I'm a dumb bitch, this would be terrible. That could hurt me, right? I wouldn't want that. So it's like it always puts us in fear because everyone is ourself. And basically, when the thought that's projecting that person's a dumb bitch, it's basically saying, I'm a dumb bitch. And then, making yourself into that demands punishment. You're demanding some kind of punishment for it. All right, I'm checking in on you guys, so let me know if you need anything, if anything's coming up for you. Yay. Hey, thank you for joining. I love you. So this is going to be our last paragraph because we're already at 4:47 and I got a dinner reservation. Woohoo. All right. Paragraph 8. You who complain about fear still persist in producing it most of the time. So we generate fear by continuing to listen to the ego. That's all it is. It's listening to fearful thoughts. You complain about fear, but persist in producing it. And this is how we produce it. We listen to the ego rather than the Holy Spirit. And this is a choice we are making. So sentence 2, Jesus is saying, I told you in the last section that you cannot ask me to release you from it because I know it does not exist. So I told you in the last section that you cannot ask me to release you from it because I know it does not exist. So Jesus is basically saying, I cannot validate what is unreal. His function is to undo illusion. So if you're making it real and wanting to be released from it, he can't do it because he knows it's not real. So footnote 123. And this comes from the last section. The correction of fear is your responsibility. When you ask for release from fear, you are implying that it isn't. So, what he's saying is, and it seems confusing maybe, you can't make the illusion true and ask to be released from it. Like, Jesus, please make this dumb bitch go away. You can't make her a dumb bitch and be released from that illusion. See, I'm using something really simple like that. You can't have it both ways. It's like the proper prayer is, Lord, heal my mind from this idea in the first place. I'm making this up. The Jesus' function is to undo illusion, not to release you from it while you're making it real. He knows it doesn't exist. And then the next sentence is fun. You don't. You don't know it doesn't exist. Our problem is not fear itself, it's belief in the reality of fear. So, sentence 4. Jesus says, if I merely intervened between your thoughts and their results, I would be tampering with a basic law of cause and effect. In fact, the most fundamental one there is in the world. Cause and effect. Interfering with consequences. See, that's a lot of times we're asking Jesus to do. That's what I notice. Most prayers of most people, what they're doing is they're asking Jesus to interfere with cause and effect. So let's say, for instance, I see this a lot. You believe in scarcity. So you're asking Jesus to give you more money. Jesus, make the money manifest. You're not asking to be relieved from scarcity consciousness in the first place. You're asking to keep the scarcity consciousness, which Jesus knows it's not real. And he's saying you don't when you're asking like that. You're not asking for the right thing. You're asking for something too small. You're asking for Jesus to manifest the money that you think you need while you're believing in scarcity consciousness. That's one example of that. Interfering with the reason why he doesn't want to interfere with consequences is because it would teach your mind that thoughts are powerless. And then you can't use thoughts to undo this illusion. And that's really what you need to do. You need to use the Holy Spirit's thoughts. That's what you're doing. When you're bringing idle, meaningless thoughts to the truth, you're using the Holy Spirit's thoughts, which he's given you 365 of them in A Course in Miracles to use, because they're powerful to undo illusions. So he's saying, if I merely intervene between your thoughts and their results, I would be tampering with a basic law of cause and effect. In fact, the most fundamental law there is in the world, cause and effect. We get it backwards all the time. Sentence 5. I would hardly help you if I depreciated the power of your own thinking. See, denying your power would reinforce your belief in weakness. And that would hold you to illusions even longer. The last thing he wants to do is depreciate your mind and make you believe even more in weakness. That's not helpful. And I love you, Wayne. Thank you. Thank you for joining. I'm really appreciative of everyone who joins. There are actually quite a few of you joining today. Thank you very much. Okay, the last sentence. What fun. And then feel free to ask any questions that come up. I'm super happy with any questions. You know, even if you think, sometimes people reflect to me, and I'm sorry about, sounding argumentative. No, please. I know anything that comes from you apparently is coming from my own mind. I do not care how argumentative you think it sounds. I want to hear it. If you're having any kind of confusion, judgment, argument about this, let's see it. Let's bring it to light. Okay? It's wonderful. I appreciate you. So final sentence. This would be in direct opposition to the purpose of this course. So what he's saying, he means this, is depreciating the power of your own thinking. So depreciating the power of your own thinking would be in direct opposition to the purpose of this course. So the purpose of this course is to give power to your thinking. This is true. So the Course in Miracles restores your awareness that your mind is the cause of everything. That's the whole thing. It's restoring this to your awareness. So that concludes our deep dive for today. We have gone through the first 8 paragraphs in section 10 of chapter 2. And we'll pick up next week, next Wednesday, same time. This is 11 a.m. Hawaii time. And it's 3 p.m. What are we in? Mountain time over here? It's 4 hours later that we start every Wednesday. And also, every Monday, I see you, Lori. I see your question. I'm going to get to it. Every Monday, we're doing what I call wisdom dialogues. Also, I could call it satsang or sangha. I've heard people call it that. And that's where I'm just I'm just riffing on my own life experiences and how I've applied A Course in Miracles to my life experience, how I've been bringing illusions to the truth over the years. It's really fun. I hope you join me for that too. Same time, I'm also doing it locally. People can come here if you're local to Ajijic, Mexico right now. It's 3 to 5, Monday through Thursday. I'm here. On Tuesday and Thursday, we're doing block therapy. It's kind of like the somatic version of what we're talking about here, to kind of get a visceral experience of what it's like to have these deep releases. Okay. Lori, okay, this isn't something about what you are talking about, but my mind is so curious of how you got all your bills paid off. So Tony isn't in debt. As you said, you were in debt over 300,000 bucks. Maybe it's none of my business. No, it's totally your business. There's one mind here. It's your business. It's awesome. No, well, because, apparently I took all that out in my own name. Okay. In Hawaii, it's a separate property state. So if I'm taking out debt in my own name, it doesn't affect my husband. Okay. So then when I don't pay that, my credit goes to shit. It goes way down, which to me means nothing. To him, apparently, my perception means something. Right. So it's like, I'll take one for the team. Since it seemed like I needed to play out this scenario anyways to get what it is that I'm needing, as far as perceptions, so I could bring my illusions to the truth, get relief, experience the more relaxed nervous system so I can see more clearly. You guys wait till my next article comes out. Oh my goodness, have I had some clear seeing around all of this? The debt, the guilt, basically I'm saying guilt is debt, and I can see how it's playing out. And oh wow, this is fun. Make sure you're following me on Substack. Durga, I see your message. I'm getting to it. Make sure you're following me on Substack because this is coming out very soon. And of course, I'm going to do a bonus audio for you guys. It's going to dig into it nice and deeply so you could also see your own patterns and stop blaming and bring, basically, this is really like an experience of giving all the power back to my mind, taking it out of this. It's this man beside me that's causing all this trouble and all this turmoil because he wants me to be working like a man, and it's like putting all the power back to my mind. I'm making this up, right? Durga asked, what is block therapy? This is compression therapy. You could look it up, blocktherapy.com. I'm a member of blocktherapy.tv where I can get all these different videos about how to put this wooden block onto my body and release fascia. Okay. So this is really a mental release. That's what we're experiencing. And while I'm sitting here in person, I have a couple people using these wooden blocks to release their fascia while I'm talking, which I love because this is a really passive way of getting the truth instilled deeply, because you're having these deep relaxations in a physical sense and like a visceral, let's say in a visceral sense, while you're listening to the truth, right? While you're listening to A Course in Miracles, or you're listening to these interpretations, right? And you're really joining, we're really all joining with Jesus and the Holy Spirit. So it's not so much in the words that I'm saying, but it's in the transmission that's coming through. My practice has been to embody this over time. So what I'm sharing really is a feeling, right? So when you're actually releasing fascia, and I know I have people listening doing the same thing because I've been talking about this for a long time. People have told me so many times, I'm listening to you while on a block. Great. I totally support that. That's block therapy. Lori came back again. It wouldn't matter for me either. I sure am not a number on a credit report. Yes, that is for sure. Yeah, it doesn't matter. What matters is my willingness to get the lessons that are coming through all of the perceptions. That's what really matters. And that's where the joy is. And you'll see that as I dive into it. Make sure you follow me on Substack, Hope Johnson Wisdom on Substack. If you're following me on Facebook already, go to my wall because I'm always linking to Substack. If you're following me on Telegram, I think it's Awesome Hope Johnson on Telegram. I'm not really sure, but you know if you're following me on Telegram, I'm linking over there too to my Substack. That's where I'm mainly sharing now. So check it out there. You can go to my website. You can donate to me on my website, or you can get one-on-ones on my website. My book there, Unschooling for Parents, A Mystic's Guide to Awakening with Children. You do not have to be a parent to enjoy this book. It's easy to read. Friends have told me they don't like reading, but they like reading my book. You can even use it as a tarot. You know, you can just open it up and read anywhere in the book and see what it's speaking to you. Basically, what I'm saying is, I had a lot of these awakenings through having children and believing I was threatened by this perception of having children. And you can use it as, I am the mother of everything I perceive. And like the Buddha said, love the whole world as if it's your only child. And this is how I was learning to really extend that love to my children, instead of having this sense that having children is threatening. So that allowed me to transfer that learning to basically the greater world, and anyone who's appearing before me, apparently I'm perceiving them as a threat momentarily, being able to embrace them, being able to embrace this energy in my body's energy field. So hopejohnson.org, great resource. I'm also reading ACIM lessons, A Course in Miracles lessons. You can follow along with me. I not only read the lessons, I give a short commentary at the end of each one. My experience, and also just kind of clarifying certain terms in there. There's also toward the end, I think beginning with lesson 221, right before that, there's these clarifications for every 10 lessons. There's these awesome clarifications. And I do that too. I read those and also have a commentary on those, like what is forgiveness? What is Christ? What is sin? Those kinds of things. And I think there's 10 of them. And they're preceding 10 lessons to clarify those 10 lessons. So we really get deep on these, and not just use it as some kind of like spiritual crutch or something like that, but really use it to go deep. Thank you, Glenn. Hooray. Glenn. Okay, Team Hope. All right, we're on the same team. I'm glad to know that. Thank you, Glenn. I really appreciate you. Thank you for joining over all these years. Also, I'm having a retreat in Hawaii. It's going to be a wonderful retreat where we couple this compression therapy, block therapy, with wisdom. So you can find out about that by going to HawaiianSanctuary.com. That's spelled HAWAIIAN Sanctuary, SANCTUARY.com. You can also contact my friend Caitlin. She's the one who's in charge of it. She says, yay, give me your email address real quick there, Caitlin, so I could speak it here. Okay, it's Kate, CAIT.aloha@gmail.com. Send her an email if you'd like to join. This is coming up in January 2026. This is my hometown here, Pahoa, Hawaii. I'm very excited to return for this. And Lori asked, oh, aren't you on James Twyman's morning talks? I'm open to it. I haven't been attending the morning sessions. I've been actually having my own block therapy sessions over here. People are joining me too at 9 a.m. This isn't where I'm doing the official, okay, here's how we do it. I'm just blocking and people are joining me. So a couple people are joining me for this. Yes, and I'm open to it if James wants to invite me. What I see at this point, they are having people living there. A few people are living there, and they seem to have a full roster of speakers. If they want me, they can certainly invite me. If you want to see me there, feel free to send them messages, Even people who live there over at Namaste, if they're like, hey, I want to see more of Hope, let them know. Let them know you want me to be there. I'm not going over there specifically unless I'm invited to speak. Randomly I might be. And if I am, I always let James know, hey, I'll be here tomorrow. If you want me to speak, I will. So I'll let you guys know if that's coming up. Either on Facebook or Substack or something like that, so you can join too. But for now, I'm doing these two per week. They're 2 hours, Monday and Wednesday, where I'm joining with you guys online. And of course, I'm just interacting with people as much as I'm guided here in Ajijic, Mexico, while I'm here till the end of August. After that, I go to Sedona. I don't know what's going to be going on there, but I'm getting the nudge from Spirit to chill out right here and get even more purification, because when I go there, the teaching is going to be stepped up. So we'll see how that looks. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining. I love you all. Have a beautiful rest of your week, and come back on Monday, same time, for Wisdom Dialogues. You know, it's going to be deep and lovely and fun and also comical. So I love you. Aloha. Ahui ho.